Today's webinar is Ditch the Diet, Building a Better Relationship with Food. Some of this information you may have seen before. A lot of our webinars this year are going to kind of circle back to a lot of the same information. As we'll learn today, repetition and committing things to memory is really important in changing our relationship with food. This meeting will be recorded, and so anybody that registered will get a link to the recording once it's posted to YouTube, as well as a copy of the slide deck. So have no fear, these will be available to you. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and get started. We do have 45 minutes today. I will say, based on some feedback we've received in the past, 30 minutes was a little quick and felt a little rushed. So I'm going to try to speak for 30 minutes and then open the line for questions that people may have. And so we'll have about 45 minutes together today. All right, so with that, welcome to Ditch the Diet, Building a Better Relationship with Food. Today's objectives, we're going to touch on why do diet resolutions fail, all these promises we make to ourselves, why we should ditch quote-unquote diets, how to ditch that diet mindset, why diets themselves fail, so what inherently is it about these quote-unquote diets that kind of set us up to not succeed, and then what we can do instead so that we can achieve lasting, sustainable change. And that brings us to sustainable change, SMART goals, forming new habits, and then at the end we will have a poll. I'll try to open it up right around 12:45 so that anybody that has to skip out a little bit early can go ahead and take the poll. Why do diet resolutions fail? So the diet promises that we make to ourselves, there's a lot of things. They're often too highly restrictive, or a lot of times we're cutting out entire food groups, or we're really narrowly defining the hours of the day that we will be eating, or it's too regimented a schedule, or we have to track everything really meticulously. So they're often too highly restrictive. They often prioritize short-term change over long-term benefit. So, oh, I'm just going to do this for 6 weeks, or I'm going to do this for 90 days, or whatever it may be. But we want to focus on that long-term change. Diet promises are often laden with guilt surrounding our food choices. So if we do say, if we do have this highly restrictive promise that we made ourselves, and then we break that and we eat something that we promised ourselves we wouldn't, now we have all this guilt. And guilt is never something that is going to be part of long-term sustainable change. Diet promises are often influenced by false media messaging. We'll see some examples on the next page. And they often fail to cultivate healthful behavior changes or an enlightened relationship with food, learning about yourself and how you relate to food and why you make certain choices. And they often fail to cultivate new skills. And then lastly, a couple more. The diet promises we often make to ourselves are sometimes set to satisfy others, or based on superficial aspirations. So a lot of times it's, oh, I want to look a certain way, and then if I look a certain way, my life will be better, my job will be better, my relationship will be better. So when we base things on these, when we make these promises to ourselves where the goal is to satisfy other people or to meet like a certain aesthetic, that often sets us up for failure. And then here's an example of some of those kind of gimmicks that we see out there. I mean, they're everywhere. You can see, I love this weird ad for Wonder Sauna long hot pants. You can see some of these are pretty old. We've been faced with a lot of this messaging for ages and ages. So there's 5 failing diet types that I just want to touch on real fast. So calorie or counting diets, it's really hard to sustain these long term just because it takes so much time and, being really meticulous and tracking everything that goes into your mouth. And I don't know about you guys, but who has time? Who has time in the day? The second one is exercise programs, so regimens that are too difficult. A lot of times, we're going to talk about SMART goals later, but I love them for exercise because a lot of times I think people are like, I'm going to run, people that aren't runners say, okay, I'm going to start running 3 miles every day. And then 3 miles is really, really hard. And they do it once and they're like, wow, I'm really sore and that was really hard and it wasn't fun. I don't want to do it again. But if you start with, 5 minutes or 10 minutes and then you work yourself up to those 3 miles, every time you hit a milestone, you get like a nice achievement. So no exercise regimes that are like way beyond your current capabilities. The third one is elimination diets. We already kind of touched on that. The fourth is substitution diets, and then kind of goes hand in hand with replacements and supplements. So when you replace a meal with a shake or replace a meal with I don't know, there's all kinds of things now, protein cookies. These aren't good permanent long-term solutions. One disclaimer though, a lot of diets have value in a clinical use to benefit people that may have, especially like food sensitivities or intolerances. Some people may need to restrict a certain food for a long period of time and let their microbiome heal, or maybe they need to restrict it forever. In the case, especially we think of like a gluten allergy or celiac sensitivity. So sometimes having a sort of restrictive diet does have some therapeutic value. But hopefully the long-term goal is after the therapy has ended to sort of like rehab into a well-rounded, well-balanced eating pattern once again. Why ditch the diet? So a few reasons. We've got 2 slides on this. That dieting may not lead to long-term weight loss. And this is research shows that calorie counting, elimination of food groups, strict meal plans, all of these things can prompt an initial weight loss, but research shows that weight loss generally doesn't last long term. And then that also can kind of lead to yo-yo dieting, and that can cause metabolic and some metabolic changes that can lead your body to further resist any weight loss. Dieting can disconnect you from biochemical cues. So when we start to follow arbitrary rules like I have to eat at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 4 p.m., we start to ignore our innate hunger and satiety cues. We really want to eat when we're hungry and stop when we're full. Dieting increases stress sensitivity. It makes you more likely to binge. So if you're restricting food, that can increase your stress. It can make you irritable and grouchy. And when we're stressed, we tend to have, biologically, we tend to crave high fat, high calorie comfort foods. So we can be at a greater risk of overeating some of those things. And then dieting also it paints food as being either good or bad. And when we label foods in this way, that leads to us feeling guilt if we eat those quote unquote bad foods. So think more about why is certain food off limits? Is there, what's the scientific reason behind that? And we don't want to polarize foods as being good versus bad, but it is important. We're going to talk about food quality or calorie quality here in a little bit. So we do want to sort of think about the quality of what we're eating, but we definitely want to scrap the shame.
I'll be back in there.
If we eat something that is more pleasurable, that's a benefit too, getting pleasure out of eting. Dieting is also often associated with feelings of failure. So 95% of people, this is a statistic, 95% of people who try a diet fail at that diet. So this is a really high percentage, and it should trigger us to think about that a little bit. If 95% of diets fail, it's pretty obvious that the problem is in the method and not in the human beings themselves. So a lot of people get really frustrated because they experience initial weight loss really quickly, 10 pounds in the first week, 5 pounds in the first week, and then weight loss kind of flattens. It's not your fault. That's predicted. That is predicted to happen. It's based on science and hormonal changes and metabolic changes that happen when you restrict. And then I'll try to get through these a little more quickly. I'm long-winded, but dieting can cause disordered eating behavior, sort of how we talked a little bit about. It sets us up to have sort of that binge behavior. It can also lead us to like obsessively think about our food in ways that can interfere with our personal and social lives. If we're saying no to dinner with friends, or we're saying no to somebody's birthday party or an anniversary, that is kind of a sign that maybe the eating pattern or the diet that you're trying to follow isn't the best one. Dieting reinforces weight stigma and the concept that thinner is better. So I want to point out that weight loss isn't always a path to better health. It can be, but we can be healthy at many sizes. And I know we talk a lot about BMI and being in certain groups, but research does show that being in the BMI healthy and overweight category are the healthiest people. And the unhealthiest groups of people tend to be underweight. Lastly, there's no such thing as the perfect diet that is going to work for everybody. Individualization is key. I'm going to mute everybody's lines real quick. I hate that I have to stop doing like a screen share to do this, I think. Hold on. Unless I'm going to mute all. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. All right, so how to ditch the diet mindset. We've talked about why, but let's talk about how. So the word diet is really a neutral word, but over the years it's come to have like this negative connotation, so I try not to use it. It really just refers, the word itself, to a habitual eating pattern. So your diet is what you eat on a daily basis throughout the day. But because it's become sort of this negative word, try to ditch it. I try not to use it. Today, I talk about eating patterns and eating choices and food choices all the time. Today, I'm obviously using the word diet a lot because that is our topic, but we're talking about ditching it. So stop using that word, and then also reframe the metric of your success. So it should not be weight-based. Address the biological drivers of weight gain or unhealthful eating. So your goal, instead of I want to lose 5 pounds, your goal, if you could reframe that, I would like to reduce my blood pressure. I would like to be able to move around more easily with my kids. I would like to improve my self-esteem. If you're an athlete, I would like to follow a certain eating pattern so that I can set a PR for myself. So try to reframe the metric of your success. And don't say sorry. I'm going to say it again. Failure is not your fault. 95% of people fail at diets, which don't support long-term weight loss for metabolic, hormonal, and neurological reasons. Failure is not due to a lack of willpower. So maybe we should stop using the word willpower too. It has nothing to do with that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about willpower in a few minutes. All right. Shift your mindset for change. Let's see. So these are 10 paradigms to help you shift your mindset. So just some things. I love this list because it really drills down on some individualism. There are so many right ways of eating, instead of, one magic bullet. There's so many different ways that can be right for you based on your individuality and preferences. Your healthy eating pattern may be different than someone else's healthy eating pattern. There are also some really thought-provoking statements here. I won't read all of them just for the sake of time, but I do love number 8. Your relationship with food and your relationship with your body impacts your health more than the food you eat. So your relationship with food, does it stress you out? Does it cause a lot of shame and guilt and negative feelings? All of those are really going to have an impact on your chronic and long-term health. So think about that as well. And then I can also, you guys will get a copy of this slide deck. We can post it to Yammer and have some more discussion about this. But I do encourage everybody to kind of read through this. And I'm going to end today's presentation on something similar that I love even more. I want to be able to read more of that, so I'm going to save my time a little bit. So why do diets themselves fail? So Dr. Mark Hyman, if you've not heard of him, he is an internationally recognized advocate in the functional medicine field. He's a really big believer in food as medicine, and what we eat impacts so many areas of our lives. So he offers 5 reasons why many diets fail. So willpower, here it comes again. People try to use willpower and not science to control their appetite. This doesn't work well because science tells us that restriction causes our cravings to increase and our metabolism will decrease because it wants to conserve energy because it knows that we're restricting. So we rely on our willpower to go against what our body is physiologically telling us that it needs. And then we feel guilty when our willpower isn't enough. So using willpower is not a good thing. Instead, we should eat enough to satisfy our appetite, focusing on whole, fresh foods, protein, healthy fats, and fiber. This won't be the first time or the last time you've heard that. Protein, healthy fats, fiber. Composed meals that are balanced to balance our blood sugar. So if we're combining protein, healthy fats, and fiber, instead of seeing big spikes and dips in our blood sugar, which affects our energy and our mood, we instead will combine those food groups and see a more of a steady curve, which will help us to maintain those healthy choices that we're making because we will be physically and mentally and emotionally in a good headspace as well. Number 2 is focusing too much on calories. Not all calories are created equal in terms of appetite regulation and metabolic control. So do think this is when we think about our quality of calories. So I love this demonstration on the right because you can see what do you think is the better choice? They're both 188 calories, but the food on the left is going to have some protein, the almonds, some protein and some healthy fat. They're going to keep me a little bit more satisfied and have a little bit more staying power, whereas the candy, the sugary candy on the right might only be 188 calories, but it's not going to keep us full, and it's going to make our blood sugar do this, which is going to make our energy levels also do this, and it's going to make us irritable. So think about the quantity or the quality over the quantity of calories. And then down toward the bottom, use sugar sparingly, but it's not off limits. I do encourage people to have some pleasurable eating experiences. So sugar is not off limits. And then think twice about artificial sweeteners. In general, artificial sweeteners are okay, but keep in mind that they may trigger cravings for more sweet things. Number 3 is diets sometimes fail because we fear fat. Fat doesn't make you fatter. Healthy fats have beneficial effects on satiety, metabolism, and overall health, and certain body functions require fat. So, for example, some vitamins and minerals do require some fat to be absorbed and used properly. So instead, focus on the quality, again, quality of the fat source. So we want to aim for unsaturated fats, which we find in nuts, seeds, avocados, olive oil, canola oil, fatty fish, and grass-fed butter. And remember, fat makes you feel full. It has a very satiating effect. So it does help us to be satisfied and feel fuller for longer. And then number 4 is sometimes diets fail because there's an underlying issue. So remember, diet success is not all about willpower. There are reasons beyond diet and exercise that affect our weight and metabolism. I want to point out this image to the right. This is from the European Association for the Study of Obesity. Everything in the light blue shows individual factors that contribute to our weight status, and everything in white shows environmental factors. And I just want to point out that so many of these are things that we don't have a lot of control over. So the workplace and business culture, our food policy, our financial status, healthcare policy, what sort of programs do we have access to, our genetics, sleep, stress, sleep and stress, hormones and metabolism. There's only one piece of this puzzle that says nutrition. So don't beat yourself up too much if you're trying everything you can and you're just not having a lot of success. Consider underlying inflammation, consider underlying endocrine disorders. My advice is to seek medical advice and explore some of these root causes. But I think this is really important to keep in mind that what we eat is only one piece of the puzzle, and it's a really big puzzle. And then lastly, diets fail sometimes because we don't have a plan. Health is not something that just happens. Beneficial lifestyle behaviors must be practiced and become habits. So think about how should you design your life to make choices that help you meet your wellness goals. For example, if we think about the chart on the previous page, sleep is a factor in maintaining our weight and health. How can we design our day so that we get more quality sleep at night? Does that mean that we make our bed in the morning and we put our pajamas on the pillowcase so at night we're not like fumbling around through everything looking for my pajamas? Can you tell I do that a lot? And then what small meaningful changes will produce the most profound change? So instead, let's learn how to make healthy habits that stick. We'll talk a little bit about SMART goals. Find an accountability system, whether it's community, friends, or family, and then design your environment to ensure success. So have healthy foods on hand on your countertop when you reach into the refrigerator. Meal prep if that works for you. Making sure you have access to a gym. Having in mind some ways that work for you to relieve stress. Design your environment to ensure success. And then this brings us sort of to the end of our presentation. We have a few slides on a framework for sustainable change. So I think this first one is really interesting. In general, we want to avoid extremes. We talked about avoiding restriction. Restriction just isn't sustainable. We want to set goals with our overall health in mind. Weight is not the metric of success or the goal that we're seeking. So seek balance in 3 key areas: type and quality of food, so what we eat, quantity of food, how much we eat, and then timing of food, when we eat. And then think of these as 3 levers pulling in opposition. Always pull one, so always think about what you're eating. Most of the time pull 2, so most of the time think about your portion sizes. And sometimes pull lever number 3. Sometimes think about when you eat. And when could be time of day, or it could be where you are on the hunger scale. So are you eating just because it's dinner time? Are you eating because you're truly hungry? Are you eating, you know, because everybody else is eating. So always think about what you eat, the quality of your food. Most of the time, think about your portion sizes, and sometimes think about what time is it, or am I hungry? SMART goals are, and I know we've done a lot of this with Motiva in general this year, so I won't spend a lot of time on this. As a refresher, they are specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and timely. And we'll set a couple SMART goals here. So if your goal is to eat better, that's pretty vague. A more sustainable goal would be, I want to increase my intake of whole, unprocessed foods. And then if we want to turn this into a SMART goal, starting Monday, so it's time sensitive, or I will swap my daily Cliff Bar snack for chopped raw veggies and hummus. So if we go back to, it's specific, what you're going to do, you're going to swap your veggies, you're going to swap your Cliff Bar for a veggie snack. It's measurable. You're going to do it once a day. It's action-oriented. You will swap. You have that action word in there. It's realistic, and it's timely. So starting Monday, I would say you want to be able to have like an end. You want this to become like a long-term habit, but you want to be able to say you like achieved your goal at the end. So you might say, starting Monday and for the next 5 days, Monday to Friday, I'm going to do this. And then set your plans and a strategy to achieve it. So this might be something like, okay, what veggies am I going to buy? Are they going to be pre-cut, or am I going to cut them? When am I going to cut them if they need to be cut? Will I pre-package them so that they're ready to go with the dip? Or will I kind of package, or will I kind of, reach into the refrigerator and portion it out as I'm going to eat it? Some other sustainable nutrition habits that you guys could practice setting some SMART goals for are to prioritize plant foods at every meal, focus on fiber, improve beverage quality. I love this one, choosing water first and reducing sugar-sweetened beverages. One of my biggest recommendations for people that are having trouble maintaining or losing some weight is to don't drink your calories, is what I always say. Because it's not the quality of the calories that we're after. Become more confident in the kitchen, rely less on convenience foods, slow down and enjoy the eating experience, so practicing mindful eating at 1 meal per day. Replace mindless eating moments with an engaging activity, so if we find ourselves mindlessly eating snacks while we watch TV, let's get off the couch and play a card game. Limit foods with added sugar, and eat more locally produced seasonal foods. And then this slide I really love. This is our last slide. It's not necessarily nutrition related, but some strategies for success when we talk about forming new habits. This is a really great article, and I can definitely share the link out when I send the slide deck, but I'll kind of go through these. One is intentionally repeat a good behavior at least 30 times. Humans need to have a repetitive event before it becomes the new normal. For those of you that have kids, you probably know this. It's something like they have to taste the new food 14 times before they enjoy it. Number 2 is understand the associated payoffs. All behaviors are governed by payoffs. We are pleasant to others because we receive a payoff. So if you want to adopt a good habit, or if you want to drop a bad habit, understand the payoffs associated with the habit. Then either connect with the payoff or sever yourself from the payoff if it's a bad habit. Understand your own values. Your choices reveal your priorities and your values. If you're looking to break a bad habit, understand first what is important about that habit to you. Often it's something like comfort. I choose comfort over discomfort, so I don't exercise. Replace it with a higher priority value. So I choose living to see my grandchildren over comfort, so I do choose to exercise. So you've got, living a long life is more important than being comfortable. So thinking about your priorities. Improve your environment is number 4. Consciously construct your environment, whether it's your home, your office, your friend groups, so that your daily choices are a default. So buy fruit and keep it on the countertop. Listen to podcasts about health and nutrition. If you have a friend that isn't very nice to you, maybe don't see that friend anymore. Getting rid of any of these negative stressors can be good for us. Number 5, set the intention and schedule the habit on your calendar. Again, repetition can turn into habit. Set up if-then eventualities. That's number 6. One of the biggest obstacles to habit forming or habit breaking can be when you slip up or when you're tempted. So think through those possible scenarios in advance, and that will take the uncertainty out of the moment and help you to avoid those slip-ups or those temptations. Have a powerful why is number 7. If you don't commit to why you will do something, a habit you want to build or change is unlikely to stick. So really think about that why. It comes back again to setting those priorities and thinking about your values. Number 8 is make your new habit the first thing you do each day. This gives your brain the clear importance. This is the first thing I do when I wake up. It's really important to me. Number 9 is pair it or replace it. 2 of the most effective ways to build a new habit or replace one is to pair it or replace it. So for example, if you want to walk more and you love podcasts, create a rule for yourself that you can only listen to podcasts while walking. So that's pairing good behaviors. If you want to stop eating cookies late at night while you watch TV, choose a healthier food instead of trying to eliminate the habit completely. So I'm going to eat whole, air popped popcorn instead of cookies. So replace it. Number 10 is get an accountability partner. We become a lot more motivated when we have a supportive person holding us accountable. Number 11 is start small and build your habits incrementally. I talk about this when I talk about SMART goals, setting small goals first, having things that are really achievable, because that achievement builds confidence for us to achieve bigger and bigger goals. Number 12 is keep practicing, even if you fail at times. Give yourself grace for failing and just keep practicing. The difference between ending a bad habit or building a good habit may simply be one more practice. So keep practicing. Focus on the 3 Ps. There's patience, because building a new habit takes time. There's practice, because practice is necessary to make something a habit. And there's perseverance, because there will be frustrating moments and there will be setbacks along the way. Number 14 is create a wins list. This again ties nicely right in with making achievable goals. Having that win list, that list of things that you've already achieved, creates momentum and builds confidence. And then lastly, number 15, start where you are. Start by assessing your readiness to change or to create a new habit. If you're still in that contemplation stage, you may not be ready yet, and that's okay. So kind of meet yourself where you are. And those are some things about building new habits. This is some resources from Motiva on nutrition-related programs and benefits. Some great nutrition programs out there: Wonder, Omada, WW, Well on Target, and Livongo.